distributed backend architecture, you might have like tons of instances for a single service, and that is to basically like handle a lot of traffic that's coming to the application, which is okay. But we need some kind of way for the load balancer or proxy that handles all the client requests to know and to be able to properly load balance the traffic to every instance that you create for that service. So whenever you create some kind of new instance, it recognizes that, it knows that, and then it just forwards the next request to that, and so on and so forth. That's what we're going to be discussing in this video. Now, firstly, like, don't get intimidated by the service registry thing. Oh god, I can't talk. But the thing is, first of all, you need to understand why we're going to be using service registries in the first place, because we don't want to overcomplicate our backend architecture. It's best to keep it as simple as possible, unless we need to use it to solve some kind of problem. Now, the way you're going to do it is, let's say I have a big company and I have, like an application, it's getting new users like day by day, and we have a few instances. Let's say I have like 5 instances of my Node.js application. I'm just using Node.js as an example. My Python fans, please don't cancel me. So let's say you have a Node.js application. It's Nest.js or Express. Now one day your server like your application cannot like handle the traffic, so you create a new instance. But how will it be beneficial if the proxy that is like load balancing all the requests, let's say it's an Nginx server, it doesn't know that you have created a new instance? So how are you going to make sure that your Nginx knows I have a new instance? Because if it doesn't know, it won't be able to load balance it, and we'll just be wasting some CPU and RAM and incurring costs on our AWS account, just for example. You can like do it in 2 ways, and the first method is like the worst thing you can ever imagine. Don't do it, but I'm just gonna like tell you so that you know why the second method is better. The first method is to just manually update the upstream like entry in your Nginx configuration. I'm just using Nginx as an example since it's like the most popular proxy. Basically, every time you create a new instance, like if you create like 2 or 3 new instances, you need to take their credentials. You need to go to like log into your proxy, your Nginx's like VPS or server, and you need to go to Nginx configuration and then just manually update like the upstream entries. That's going to be troublesome. I mean, you can already guess why, because let's say we have some kind of auto-scaling mechanism. Let's say we have like an auto-scaling group on AWS EC2, or some kind of like, scaling system for ECR, like the container system. I forgot what it is. So not ECR, ECS. ECR is the container registry. ECS is the container service. Now, you won't know the credentials of the new instance, and you won't even know if it's scaled or not, because you want it to be fully dynamic. And that's going to be painful to do if you use the first method, which is to like update your Nginx upstream configuration manually. The second reason is basically the best one, is to have some kind of service registry. Now, what does service registry mean? Basically, service registry is some kind of application or a server, and the only job it has is to keep track of every service and instances you create for that service. So let's say I have some kind of like API. Let's say I have a Flask API. Now that Flask API, let's say it's like the main backend gateway, and it can have multiple instances, and it can have like 10, 20 instances. And basically what the service registry will do is it'll keep track of every single instance. It'll like, have some kind of health checking mechanism. And whenever service goes offline, it's going to like deregister it from its like entries, like in its cache. It's a stateful service, So basically the way it's going to work is every time you create a new instance of your service, like as I've said, it can be a Flask application, a Node.js app, it's going to register itself to the service registry on the service registry server, and like it's okay. So you just register itself, and now the service registry knows that okay, so we have a new server, and yeah, the service registry can now keep track of every single application, and we can do this with like multiple service registry applications. We can do this with like etcd, we can do this with Apache Zookeeper, we can do this with Netflix Spring Cloud, Netflix Eureka. We can also do this with Hashicorp Consul. Now I went with Consul because I wanted to try it out and it seemed interesting. So yeah, that's what I'm using. Now, a problem with having a single instance, a single service registry instance is like it's basically a single point of failure. If that service registry goes down, well, your whole application goes down. Nobody can, like, interact or communicate with each other because they don't even know that these services exist, or like where these services are. They don't know the information. So it's best to, like distribute your application like multiple data centers. So if your application is like huge, if your company is huge, something like Google or Netflix, you can have like multiple data centers in the world, and each data center can have like 2 or 3 service registry instances, and yeah, that's gonna be okay. Now, the way we're going to actually implement this is like this. Now, I basically copy pasted this image from the Nginx website because I couldn't be bothered to make my own thing. Basically, what we want to do is we want to have a service registry over here, and every instance, so let's say all of them are the same instances, like, the same service, instance A, instance B, instance C, they're going to register themselves on the service registry. Now, instead of this being another service, let's say this is the end user. Let's say this is like some guy wanting to use your website. They send a request to the load balancer. Let's say this is Nginx. Now, the load balancer doesn't know that the services exists since the upstream is going to be dynamic. So what it'll do is it'll send a request to the service registry. It can be an HTTP request. It can be DNS SRV. But it's basically going to send a request. It's going to like get the service, and the load balancing thing, like which service to forward the request to, can be done on either the load balancer side or the service registry side. It's up to the thing, like it's up to this application. So once the load balancer receives the service, credentials, the port and the host name, it's basically going to use that as the proxy path. It's going to use that as the upstream, and then just forward the request to that service. That instance. Now, this is pretty good. I mean, this is actually a good way of implementing this, but the problem is Nginx itself does not come with this feature. You need some kind of way to program Nginx, and I'm not talking about modifying the Nginx source code. Nginx Plus, which is like the paid version of Nginx, has this feature, this critical feature. And I don't want to spend money on buying Nginx Plus because, first of all, I'm a big fan of open source and free software. Second of all, I'm broke as hell. So the way we're going to actually implement this, without using Nginx, is using OpenResty. Say hello to OpenResty, which is basically it's basically a version of Nginx which you can program using Lua scripts, because like you can interact with Lua through C. Nginx is written in C, and like Lua and C can live together happily ever after. So that's the reason we're going to be using OpenResty. Basically, OpenResty provides like a Lua API for configuring Nginx. You can like program it. You can have dynamic upstreams. You can also have like dynamic input, like like outputs, like dynamic HTTP results. And I mean, you can literally use this to make a full backend, although I'm not going to recommend it. So that's what we're going to be using for our our like load balancing using Hashicorp Consul. The first thing we're going to do is check if Consul is installed or not. Now, I'm not going to show you how to install Consul here. You can just like read the documentation on Hashicorp's website. But basically, we have like this Consul UI on port 8500. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to like start a few Flask applications. So I have a Flask application here. I'm gonna show you the code here. It's pretty simple. Basically, what it's gonna do is gonna like get a random port. Then it's gonna generate a UID as its service ID, and it's gonna register itself on the Consul service discovery as with the service name Flask app, Flask-app, and the tag is gonna be master. And when you visit the get PID, it's going to show you the service ID so that we can like recognize which service the request is being forwarded to. And whenever the application stops, we want to deregister it. Pretty simple application. So let us run a few instances here. So we're going to run a few instances. And if I visit this over here, let me actually copy this copy the IP and then just visit this. Whoops, my bad. You see there's the service ID, and if I go to Consul, you see it basically auto reloads. I don't know how it does that. I mean, yeah, I know how it does that. It's like a WebSocket connection, but whatever. We have 3 instances. Each of them are like the service ID. Okay, so it's basically we got our service registry working perfectly, and even in our like if we go to our if we like I forgot what I was gonna do. Yeah. So if we use DNS, so Hashicorp Consul has a way to query the information through DNS. So I can use dig, and basically I've like done this thing before, like before I recorded this video, because I wanted to see if it actually works or not. I was like messing with this thing. So I got the servers like flash-app, and I'm gonna use SRV so that it returns the port number as well. And if I hit enter, you see it's returning me the DNS query results. I have like the same domain. We have multiple entries. We have 3 entries, each with their different ports. And if I go here, you see the ports are the same ones that are shown over here, which is basically what I want to use. So our Hashicorp console is working perfectly, and I want to use DNS because it's running on like a UDP protocol, and it's kind of faster than HTTP from what I've experienced. So instead of using the HTTP interface to like, on the proxy on OpenResty, I want to use the DNS one. I think it's like better in like a lot of cases. So now that we have set up our like we have like checked our console and also our Flask application, I want to like go over how to install OpenResty, since OpenResty is like not as popular as Nginx and it doesn't have like a lot of videos. I mean, it's basically like Nginx but with Lua, so you can extend Nginx with Lua's and it's easy to script it. So the way you're gonna install like OpenResty, well, you can install it in like a lot of ways. You can also have like, they also got Linux binaries, but I prefer installing it from source. So I'm going to go to the download page. Oh wait, I already have it open. I forgot. So you can install like official pre-built packages. You can get it for Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS, Red Hat, Amazon Linux, Alpine. I like to compile everything from source. So I'm going to copy the link and then get the source code. So if I go to .source, which is my folder for every source code thing, and I'm gonna just like we get this, and I've done this before, so you can like see the IntelliSense thing. I'm not even gonna call it an IntelliSense, like the auto completion thingy. So you're gonna do tar -xvf. I've done this before, so yeah, and I can just like rm OpenResty, and if I go here, so I can do make -j2. Oh, sorry. First I go to do /configure -j2. And I'm basically following the instructions for installing this. So basically just doing everything it showed here. And I think this is just like configuring everything. I think this is doing like luajit. Yeah, this is basically configuring the luajit thing. And it's going to check all the files and stuff, and it's going to compile it. Okay, so we can now just do make -j2 to just, like compile all of the files. And then we're gonna like do a final compilation and then just like install it into our path. Okay, so now let us install this, sudo make install, and this will now do the final compilation and just install everything. Oh, it's already installed. So now we need to add these 2 directories to the path. So like these 2 things. So this is going to be the OpenResty package manager and stuff. So it's going to add OpenResty. This is going to add the custom Nginx version thingy. And yeah, I've already added it to path, but make sure to add it yourself or else it's not going to work. And you guys are going to be yelling at me in the comment section. But yeah, a lot of people are like too lazy to watch the video and listen to my ranting. So yeah, we got that ready. So we can now, let me go to a folder and I'm going to mkdir OpenResty. Oh, it already exists. So if I do cd OpenResty, I got a lot of stuff here, but I'm going to remove everything. So, because why not? Okay, so now let's go to the instructions, and we have installed OpenResty, but I want to go to the homepage and, like how to use it. So getting started, and we can basically use the, like for the Resty CLI to run, scripts. But what we're interested in doing is basically creating an Nginx configuration. So let me create a folder called conf, and I'm going to create an Nginx configuration here. And by default, I'm just going to like copy paste this one. And the server is going to listen on 9000. Now let me just, hello YT, So we have that. And now also let's make a logs folder. We have that. And now let us run the server. So we have a configuration. So in order to run the server, we're gonna type Nginx. Now the Nginx thing, it comes with the OpenResty server, and in the installation page, I've told you guys to add a few things to pod. This directory contains this Nginx executable, so we need that. And we can now just do nginx-p and $pwd/. So basically, what it's gonna do is gonna like take the parent directory as our current directory, and by default, it's gonna try to find an nginx.conf with the conf directory. So if you hit enter, it's gonna start Nginx. And if I go to localhost 9000, I'm going to see hello YT since this is programmed by Lua. Now, the code over here, if I go to getting started, you're going to see that it has this block called content by Lua block, and you basically are able to like print out things using Lua, which is pretty nice. Now, what we want to do is we basically want a way to like configure our Nginx so that it proxies everything to like Hashicorp Consul instances. So we can just like go to the Nginx configuration again. But before we do that, I need to go to the I need to make a folder called scripts. Wait, does scripts exist? No, there's nothing here. Okay, so let's do a DNS access.lua, and let's go and write some code. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is first we need to import the DNS resolver, and you can import this from the resty DNS.resolver. So it basically comes to, you can think of this as the OpenResty standard lib, sort of like that. And we're gonna do resolver. Now let us have let's basically create our query domain, and the query domain is basically gonna be our DNS things like the if I actually close this, so this is the thing that we used, so like this dig thing. And the way, okay, let me actually explain. I can't talk for some reason. Okay, so here's the structure, the thing we're gonna query. First of all, this is the service name. So for the DNS API that Consul provides, first you need to have the service name, then you need to say service, the data center name, so it's data center 1, and then .consul. This is what we're gonna use. Secondly, we're gonna have a DNS what? Let's say conf, and first thing we're gonna have is the host, so 127.0.0.1, and then we're gonna have the IP, which is gonna be 8600. Okay, so that's all we have here for now. And also, I want to have a function to like error out. So let's say function error, and then we're gonna have a reason, and then a status code. And we can do Nginx. Oh, it's not Nginx, I think it's Nginx, yeah. Status equals to status code, and then we're also gonna do nginx.say. And so basically, the thing we're gonna do is gonna throw a like server error. So let's say we have some kind of issues trying to like resolve the DNS, trying to get an instance. It's gonna throw an error. That's what we want to do here. And then we can just like end this here. Boom. Okay, so we have our query domain. Oh, I forgot one thing. This is Lua. I need to say local for every single thing. And now we want to create a DNS instance. DNS. Let's just call it DNS. And then we also might have some DNS error. And this is going to be a resolver new. Oh, it's not. This is how to do new. We're basically creating a new instance of the resolver. And okay, this is not going to be resolved. It's going to be DNS res. And we're going to put the name servers. So name servers. And this is going to be our DNS configuration. So it's an array or like a table in Lua. And then we also want to like do a timeout after 200 milliseconds. This is what we're going to do. And if we do not have a DNS, you know what? This might not happen. So yeah, I mean, it's still, to be honest, let's just do it. If not DNS, then I'm going to basically just like, return abort. And the reason is going to be not abort, this is error. The reason it's going to be is because, well, DNS couldn't be resolved, I think. Resolved, and this will be a 500 error. And then we're going to end this. Now I want to have all the records, so it's going to be local entries. And another entry error, and we're gonna query the DNS, and this is gonna be the query domain, and then the query type is gonna be SRV because I want to have the ports as well. You know, without SRV, we're not gonna get the port. So the query type is gonna be DNS, so DNS dot type underscore SRV. This is gonna be the SRV port, and if there are no records, then I want to also abort, and it's gonna be no records found, and it's gonna be a 502 because bad gateway, and then we're gonna end. And why did I type abort again? You know what? I'm like writing abort for no reason at all. Flask habits, aborting on every single error. I'm gonna put abort here as well. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is basically we're gonna try to get one entry, like the first entry in the you know, like DNS like entries. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have like if the first record has a port, so if entries is dot port, then what we're gonna do is we want to like resolve the target to an IP. So the target IP will basically be local TIP, and I want DNS to query the target, so it's basically gonna be the entries 1.target. And the reason I'm using 1, okay, so this might piss you guys off a little, but basically arrays or like tables start at 1 in Lua. And yeah, this is very, very confusing, not gonna lie. Anyway, so we're gonna get the first 1. Why did I type 0 again after saying that? Okay. We're gonna get the address. And let's like put a comment here, and basically I want to have like an upstream target, like a proxy target. So I want to change an Nginx variable through Lua. So let's call that variable. So for now I'm just typing into the comment. So nginx.var. Let's just call it proxy address, and that will be the target IP. And we're gonna append a few strings, target IP, and we're gonna have the port. Great. And we are gonna do again abort. So basically, if the port does not exist, we're gonna say no valid ports found, and this is gonna be a 500 because I don't know what error I can like give this thing. So we have this for now. Let's now go to the Nginx configuration, and we can now do a few things. Firstly, I want to remove this thing here. You know, I want to add like some like spacing because the spacing's pretty bad on this one. Oh, why did I do that? Okay, anyways. So the first thing I want to do is I want to like create a empty variable. So it's gonna be proxy address, and then that's just gonna be an empty thing. And I want to do an access by Lua file. What it does is, wait, let me actually type this out first. So access by Lua file basically like runs this Lua script every single time like you send a request. And since Lua is like an embedded language, it will be fast. Lua is pretty fast. So now the script will be Lua slash DNS access.lua. Not Lua slash, this should be scripts slash, since that is our name, a script name. And now I want to do proxy pass, and that should be the proxy address and a $sign. I forgot that. Okay, so let me explain what it does. So since the script does not have like any functions over there, it's basically we're gonna run the entire script, and that script will set the proxy address variable here. So you see we're trying to set the proxy address variable over here. So in our let me actually wait, I forgot how you do that thing. Scripts, DNS access, okay, yeah. So you see this, let me actually uncomment this over here. So we have this proxy address thing here, this proxy address variable, and this is an Nginx variable. And I want to set the target IP plus colon, you know, and at the port. And basically, I'm just changing this empty variable. So I first create an empty variable, I change that by running the script, and then I just like send a request over here. So if I kill Nginx, so to kill Nginx, basically in our logs folder, so if I do ls logs, you get the Nginx process ID. It's just like keep track of everything, and I want to like quit this, so kill-quit, and then we're gonna like cat it from here. Now, since I'm using fish shell, you need to put a $sign here if you're using bash, but I'm using fish, so for like concatenation, I don't need that. I kill this, I kill Nginx, now I start Nginx again. If I go here, if I hit refresh, it's gonna say no records found. And why is that? Wait, if I go to my nvim scripts / DNS access.lua, it's gonna say no records found. Oh, wait, my bad. It should be if not entries. I'm an idiot. I'm gonna kill this, start this again. If I refresh, you see, it's basically load balancing the thing. You know, you get like different service ID. That means it's, you know, either one of those. And if I go to my console instance, it says request served from client, and it's a DNS request. It's basically sending a request here, type SRV, and it's just like serving everything. And it's using the UDP protocol, so you know it's a DNS request. And all of our instances are getting requests over here. So that means it's working perfectly. And if we go to, if we like cat log / access.log, you see all of the requests are being served properly. And if I even like, you know, create a new instance, so I can cd coding / test flask python app.py. If I go here, this is the new server side. So it starts with 4b52. Now we're gonna see the 4b52 somewhere here. Just give it a second. Oh, okay, yeah, you saw that. You saw that. There was the 4b52 thing. So our new service is automatically being like, you know, recognized by console, and OpenResty is just fetching from that. So it's pretty cool, like the way you're doing that, and we don't need to manually update it. And since like for the Nginx like lovers like me, OpenResty is just amazing. Like Lua isn't that hard of a language. You can learn Lua easily and just program Nginx using OpenResty, and it's pretty lightweight. So that's all for this video. I just thought that this thing was cool, and I didn't find any resources for like, you know, using load balancing service registry, not on YouTube, not on Medium, nor like the whole internet. So yeah, that's why I made this video. And thank you for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.